It was a clear autumn day when it happened. A brisk walk in the park would nearly cost me my life. All I can really remember from that day is the sound of tyres screeching, an imminent feeling of panic, and a brief glimpse of a silver bumper charging at me at an alarming speed. The next thing I knew, I could hear disembodied voices speaking from all directions. Some were obviously doctors from the way they spoke, others were much more familiar. I'll never forget hearing the distraught voice of my wife. "What do you mean he's unresponsive? Does that mean he's in a coma or something?" At first I tried to open my eyes, but it wasn't possible. Along with the thick fog permeating my mind, there seemed to be an impossibly heavy presence, keeping my eyes and mouth shut. All I could do was listen to the disembodied voices. "Michael, can you hear me?" Something was strange about this voice. It sounded oddly familiar, yet I couldn't put a name or face to it. "Michael, I can read your thoughts. Tell me if you can hear me, sweetheart." For a second I hesitated. How could somebody read my mind? It didn't make any sense. Being stuck where I was, I didn't have any reason to deny the voice's request. "I can hear you. Who are you?" Picking my words carefully in the void of darkness, I began to see a golden light glowing before me. Within this light appeared a beautiful woman, garbed in white robes of silk, long flowing white hair, and one of the most beautiful smiles I'd ever seen. Her face was much like a voice, oddly familiar. "I'm your grandmother, Michael, the one who gave you the brown teddy bear when you were first born." Her words put me in a state of amazement and shock. My dad would always tell me stories about how kind and sweet his mother was, and how it pained him that I never got a chance to know her. The brown teddy bear was the only thing that she could give me before cancer had taken her from the world. "Grandma, what's going on? Why are you visiting me?" "You're in a limbo right now, sweetheart. A state between life and death. I'm here to guide you in the right direction." She reached out with both arms and grabbed my hand. In one swift motion, I felt something heavy lift from me. That's when I realised I stood next to my own hospital bed. Watching my unconscious body sitting there next to me was my wife, who looked as if she cried herself to sleep. "Come, sweetheart, it's time to go." Turning my head towards the ceiling, I saw a ray of light and the silhouette of my grandma floating there. She beckoned forward with her arms. For a moment, I found myself floating towards the ceiling and the comforting ray of light. When I realised what I was doing, I stopped and looked back at the hospital bed. "Grandma, I'm not ready to die. I need to be with my wife." There was a long pause of silence. When I looked back at the ceiling, the tunnel of light faded away. Grandma floated to the floor, a sweet and innocent smile still glowing on her face. "Very well. Cannot force you to come, sweetheart. But it is time, and you must embrace that eventually." Having nothing to say, I just nodded with a smile. Floating over to where my wife slept, I stood there watching her. A sense of guilt washed into my heart when I thought about what she must have been going through. When I tried to touch her, my hand just phased through her body. Hours passed while I just sat there. Nurses occasionally came in to check in on me and replace a fluid bag for my IV. When she woke up, I instinctively greeted her like I normally would. "Hey babe." She couldn't hear me though. When she woke up, all she did was stare at my unconscious body for a while before going on the phone. Unsure of what to do, I calmed my mind and put all my emotions to rest so I could think. And that's when I could sense it. Grief. So much grief. It radiated from my wife like an overwhelming energy, leaving me stricken with this feeling in my own heart. I could feel other energies as well. They were faint compared to the flood of grief drowning on my hospital room, but they were there. I could feel anxiety seeping out from many of the patients' rooms in the hospital, a result of people who were unsure of their health or future. I could feel stress and anticipation from the doctors and nurses working, waiting for the relief of day's end. One feeling was beautiful and sweet, and it came from the maternity ward of the hospital. My mother seeing her child for the first time. These energies and emotions swirled around, and the more I kept a calm and clear mind, the more I could pick up on them. There's one energy which was rather unique, and it took me a few days of being in the limbo to pick up on it. It was a feeling of dishonesty. My spirit couldn't leave the hospital itself since my body was there, but I could roam around any part of the hospital freely. When I first picked up on the feeling of dishonesty, I was floating around in the reception area. Two of the receptionists working there were talking about typical life stuff like what they wanted to do on vacation. Yeah, I already like 20 grand saved up, so my vacation will be great, one of them said. The moment she began to speak, I picked up on a faint energy. It wasn't like the other emotions I had been on picking up before. This one was somehow bitter and perverse in a way. It didn't take me long to realise the lady had made up a white lie so she could be more impressive to her co-worker. From then onward, I picked up on that energy whenever someone lied. White lies were very faint and hard to detect. Others were so overpowering that I had to leave the room. One example of that was the poor girl who was having a breast surgery removed due to cancer. When she asked her boyfriend if he would still be with her, he said, "Of course, always." The lie was so putrid that its energy made the room unbearable. About a month went by in this limbo state. Every day Grandma would ask if I was ready to go, and I would always tell her no. Then I finally asked her a question. "Well, what's on the other side? What's heaven like, Grandma?" With the same old smile, she looked at me and spoke in a soft voice. "Everything you could ever want, sweetheart. It's a beautiful place with no hunger, disease, hardship, or want for anything. Everyone there is excited to meet you." While she spoke, a shiver crept up into my spine. If I still had one way when she spoke, I sensed it. That unpleasant energy, dishonesty. "You're lying," I told her. That's when the smile finally vanished. Now Grandma's expression seemed indifferent. "You've been here too long. It's time for you to come back." Her one sweet voice had become firm and demanding. "No, I refuse." As she approached, I backed away. The tunnel of light appeared behind her and she reached out with her one arm. When she grabbed me, I looked at my wrist and realised with horror that her hand wasn't human. It was some sort of reptilian claw, which grabbed me forcibly. Glancing back up, I saw Grandma's face and had morphed into a horrible dinosaur-looking creature with bright red eyes. She hissed in an inhumane voice. "You know too much. You must come back with us now." Despite being out of my own body, I could feel my heart pounding at 1,000 miles per hour. That's when I noticed streams of energy swirling around the room, some of different colours. The energy streams were emotions such as fear, sadness and anger. They swirled around until they mixed together and collected a single point on the ceiling, the source of the white light. With all the strength I could muster, I broke free from the reptilian creature's grasp and fell backwards into the floor. Once again, I was in the void, yet there seemed to be one small point of light. Then it got bigger, and I could see that the light was actually earth. Swirling up from the earth was energy, a collection of all negative emotions. The energy swirled up into one singular point above the earth in a white portal of light. Then became the visible, the horrible face of a reptilian creature, mouth agape. It sucked in all of this energy, feeding off it like an addictive drug. Just when I began to realise what I was staring at, gravity began to pull me back down to the earth. The next thing I knew, I opened my eyes in the hospital room. My wife cried and squeezed my whole arm when she saw me awake. She sat there repeating the same words over and over again. "I'm so happy you're awake, babe. I love you." It's been a long time since I woke up, and I still don't know when I should tell her the truth. but she needs to know. Trust nobody and nothing when you die. Thanks for listening, guys. If you've enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified so you don't miss out on future videos.